Very good. We have been doing some hard work, as is fairly obvious. We have a new ballot paper, a new draft ballot paper. It's on the screen, and it just has 4 questions. There is a fundamental question that was raised by a number of tables as to whether, if question 1 is answered in the negative, whether the other questions need to be gone to, or whether there should be a sequential approach to it. And what we're going to do now is I'm going to ask, first of all, we're going to go through the questions as they are now, the wording that's in them now, and then we're going to go back to the fundamental question as to whether there should be a sequential approach, even if the first question is answered in the negative. So that's the way we're going to do it. So the first question, I'll ask Oren to explain where we've gone on that.
Yeah, so it's great to be back. I think it's just to try to capture it more in terms, as you're asking, first change the status quo. I think we just had to work out how to describe what the status quo was. Just as you see, the current constitutional position as regards the dissolution of Dáil Éireann should be changed, or the current constitutional position as regards the dissolution of Dáil Éireann should not be changed. So that's what we're suggesting for question 1. Show of hands.
Yeah, well, we're just talking about the wording now. Perhaps a show of hands to indicate that you're in favour of that terminology for question 1. I think that is almost unanimous. Almost, not quite. All right. Then question 2, I'll have to say a few words about question 2. It now reads, as you see, if the current constitutional position as regards the dissolution of Dáil Éireann is changed, how long should the parliamentary term be? So what we've done there in that question is link it to question 1, and then we have repeated option 1 and option 2, which is 4 years and 5 years, and we've added a third option which was suggested, prefer not to state an opinion. Is that all right? Are you in agreement with that? Again, maybe a show of hands. Yeah. And then question 3, linked again. There's just one sort of very obvious change in section 3, and that is the deletion of the reference to semi-fixed, that sort of technical term which political scientists are very familiar with, but the rest of us probably aren't that familiar with. In fact, I never heard it until I read the papers. But in any event, it's related back again to question 1. Is the current constitutional position if the current constitutional position as regards the dissolution of the Dáil is changed? And then there are 3 statements. Option 1 is there should be an absolutely fixed term, and that's explained as, i.e. one that cannot be cut short under any circumstances. And then option 2 is there should be a fixed term, but one that can be cut short subject to certain conditions. And it was there that we deleted the reference to semi-fixed. And then there's the third option, as was suggested, prefer not to state an opinion. How do you feel about that? Are you in favour of that? Yeah. Very good. And now we go to question 4. And Robert would just say a few words. There are some changes in question 4.
Some changes, but I think they follow on. So again, you'll see we've changed the first part of the question, just really repeating the scenario. But then we've added that second clause there, and there is a fixed term which can be cut short subject to certain conditions. So that really makes it following on from question 3. So if you think if there is a change, and there are some conditions under which the fixed term can be cut short, so that hopefully makes the scenario under which that we're trying to get at here a little bit clearer. We added in, as with the other ones, the prefer not to state an opinion option, so that follows what we've done before. In terms of the options, we tried to make it clear that the Taoiseach is included in the cabinet. There was a discussion that if we put the Taoiseach separately, it would raise some other constitutional issues, and so therefore but we understood that there was a need perhaps to signal the role of the Taoiseach here, but the Taoiseach is part of the cabinet, so that's where we sort of included the Taoiseach there. And then for both B and C, we included the clause a majority of the members of. So basically that's not just a majority of people who happen to turn up and vote, but a majority of the members of Dáil Éireann, and similarly for the supermajority.
All right. Well, are you happy about that change of wording? Does it meet, it may not meet everybody's suggestions, but by and large, are you happy with it? And again, a show of hands. All right. And I think there's a majority. Yeah. And we've stopped there. There were some very useful suggestions about setting out various circumstances in which the term could be cut short. But I mean, it is probably going beyond what we've been asked to do by the Oireachtas. We haven't been asked to legislate effectively. We've been asked for just observations, recommendations in relation to fixed term parliaments. So we have stopped there, but we'll come back when Sharon explains the consequential point. We can come back and see what your views are as to the completeness of the paper.
So I'm just going to explain. We had a conversation about the point that was raised about on question 1, in the event that the Assembly voted by a majority that the current constitutional position as regards the dissolution of Dáil Éireann should not be changed, and in the event that the Assembly votes in a majority for that, what is the point in continuing with the remaining questions? And the way we've having considered it, we think there are 2 options. One is that we would pose this question and there would be a ballot on this question alone first, and we would await the outcome of that result before we would go ahead to vote for the remaining questions. Now, there are certain disadvantages of doing that, not least that it'll lengthen the time that it will take. But
depending on the result.
Depending on the result, yes. But the other disadvantage is that you wouldn't get to understand, or the Oireachtas wouldn't have the benefit of understanding your viewpoint in respect of the remaining questions. The other alternative is that we go ahead and include all 4 on the ballot paper, and a vote is taken and counted, and the results are reported in respect of all 4 questions, even if the majority of the Assembly is looking for no change as regards the current position in question 1. One of the things that we considered was that you could do all 4 questions but only report on question 1, and that you wouldn't effectively report on the remaining questions unless there was a majority in favour of change. But we felt that would be an untenable position to have this information in our possession as regards what the Assembly thought but weren't reporting on it. So we think it's an either or. So you'd either actually do it in sequence, question 1, await the outcome and then move on, or we do all 4 together. Yes, if there's a vote in favour of change. If there's a vote in favour of change, or we do all 4 together. So what we want to put to you is a vote for either option, essentially. So to be clear, the 2 options are take question 1 and await the outcome, and only then, if there's a majority in favour of change, we would then go on to see what that change is. That's option 1. Option 2 is that we ballot you on all 4 questions and report on all 4 questions, irrespective of the outcome of question 1. So are people clear what the 2 options are? So can I have a show of hands in respect of the first option, which is a sequential ballot? We do number 1 first and await the outcome. All those in favour of that as an option, raise their hands. Okay, and just for the sake of completeness, option 2, all those in favour. Okay, so that's fairly clear cut.
It's it's very clear. And as will be clear from the explanation of the changes to the questions, in each question after question 1, there is a prefer not to state an opinion option. So it's open to members who do not want to express a view on those questions to refrain from doing so, and to just tick the prefer not to state an option box. Now, I just once again, I'll come back to the fact that we haven't added any of the additional questions that were suggested, and as I said, some of them were very interesting suggestions, if I may say so. But what I want to know is, are the members prepared to accept this draft as the complete ballot paper without any additions? Yes, certainly.
Michael, can you just wait for the mic, please?
I was just wondering, with the number of people who had additional questions or whatever to be added, and different opinions, would it be feasible to allow for sort of an ancillary option, ancillary recommendations option, along the lines we did in previous weekends, so that those people could express those views, and then they may or may not, I don't know, end up in the final report? It would give them an option to express those ideas or whatever.
Do you see any problem with that?
I think that's probably a good idea. I guess that would take the form of a final question on the ballot paper, which would invite people to give any additional thoughts that they have, and then those would be recorded and reported.
Yeah.
That's the point you're making, yeah?
Yeah.
Seems.
Yeah. How did we do it?
Could that be put on, like, not on the ballot, that while the voting is taking place, if someone wants to write down an auxiliary recommendation, that they can sit down at their table, write it out and hand it to a member of the Secretariat, so that people aren't standing in the booths writing out essays when there's a queue of people with ballots?
We'll do a paper. And I just want to, I don't know whether I've told any of you this before, but my most important contribution to this process was that I recommended that there would be a carbon copy. I think some of the younger folks weren't familiar with the carbon copy. So there'll be a carbon copy, and you can take home the carbon copy.
The way we don't have any with us, so it'll just be
Oh, cheapers! Well, I suppose they can photocopy it if they want. Yeah. I gather there's no carbon paper here. Oh my God! Oh, yeah. Well, then we'll do it that way. We'll produce an ancillary reflections or ancillary recommendations paper, and we'll deal with them in the same way as we have done on previous on previous topics. Yeah, it's a good idea. Yeah. Any other questions? Very good. Thank you very much. We have our ballot paper. It may not seem like this, but an awful lot of work has gone into it. An awful lot of work, both in preparation for today and today. And I hope to see you all later this evening when we'll have some fun from 7:15 onwards.
And just to remind, we're meeting in the main lobby, and the dinner itself is in this room. So enjoy your very brief period where you have a bit of a rest.